So, guys and gals, welcome to this week's edition of Mindful Money. All right. And in this segment today, we're going to be discussing creating a budget to get to your financial house. All right. Now, in our last presentation, we went through some of these points that you see in front of you, right? Protecting your family. That means protecting your income, right? Having a legal plan of action in place for the likeliest of situations. That can range from, you know, unexpected health or injury. That can also be identity theft and fraud protection. That can also mean making sure that if you're a parent still caring for children that are under the age of majority, you have a plan of action for those children to be cared for, right? You know, whether that's a marriage or a new style of co-parenting agreement, because we live in today's day and age, right? So, people are living different, and we have to take into consideration these additional factors, right? And of course, for everyone, getting out of debt is a primary challenge for many people. It doesn't matter what you look like, short, tall, skinny, plus size, it doesn't matter. Okay. Uh, Poor financial planning leads to financially being poor. Okay. And this is just a change in mindset. So what you didn't know before could hurt you because what you don't know, you don't know. We can change. All right. So getting out of debt, we discussed the rule of 72 and how interest rates affect principal payments, minimum balances, so on and so forth. And then, of course, a lot of us want to get to a place in our lives where we don't have to work for money because it's a necessity, right? We can still keep working if we want to, but it's not a major concern. It's more of a passion versus a need in a profession, right? So it just means that financial independence number that you need to achieve in order to not have to worry about going back to work, whatever it is that you did before, right? And think about that as well, because whatever it is that you used to do, aren't they still hiring people in this new day and age? Don't things change? Aren't there updates to the laws, to the way things are, processed and handled? Of course, things change, and now a lot of things are now going into a more digital format. So are you prepared to deal with the new day and age's means of technology, right? Now, of course, this is important to consider because for those of us who do have children, yes, you may want to plan for your children's college, but here's something that your children can do that you can't do. Your children can work their way through college. You cannot work your way through retirement. All right. So that being said, we're going to talk about a couple of things today, revolving all and involving all of this. Kind of familiarize many of you with who some of my business partners are. If you take a look at the screen right here, you'll see probably some very familiar names and faces. All right. So actually, let me just pull this up real quick so that I can see this. Then, we'll move on to building a budget. Okay. Now, you know, for anyone that's on this call, do any of these names look familiar? Yeah, and if they do, feel free to like unmute yourself, and name one of the companies that look familiar. If you don't feel like unmuting yourself, go ahead and put it into the chat.
Rocket, Fidelity, AIG, Voyager, and Palmer. Legal Shield also.
That's right. And Fidelity, absolutely.
I recognize several. I see Equitable. Mom used to work for Equitable, Primerica, Fidelity, AIG, Vivint, Rocket, Legal Shield. Yeah,
Okay.
Invesco.
And for the parents that are on the call or maybe watching this video at some later time, you may see Scholar's Edge, for college savings plans, Franklin Templeton, American Funds, just for you to start considering, well, who are some of the names that I need to be familiar with for my child, right? So, um, yeah, guys, this is clearly not a conversation around any one particular area of finance. It's really a general conversation. And of course, in our discussion, it'll go any number of places, but that'll be based on what we discuss. Okay. So I'm gonna take this part of the screen off and let's create a budget for retirement. All right. Now, in creating a budget for retirement, some of you guys, you know, and for some of us that are still starting out, haven't even thought about retirement yet. Like, we're still walking around thinking you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, 120 pounds soaking wet with work boots on. Come on, all right. You know, the world is such a big place, and we oftentimes have a little bit of a fantasy of what we want our life to look, right? But as we all know, in order to get
Hmm.
to that happily ever after situation, isn't there a little bit of a hero's trial that occurs, right? And a lot of that, oftentimes, the hero is just fumbling their way through, right? Why is that? Well, the hero never expects the situation to occur that they get tested with. And so now with, a spontaneous, random, spur of events, right? Life cast this individual into action, you know, figuring out the ways to navigate the situation, to adapt, to overcome, or to fail, right? And in the fumbling process, we see that there are constant failures, constant, missteps, but the hero is getting it together. The heroine is getting it together, right? 'Cause we got ladies and gentlemen on this call, so we're going to be fair to everybody, right? We got heroes and heroines, and I'm not talking about the brown stuff, okay? I'm talking about the ladies that also wear the shields and the capes, all right? But their swords and their daggers as well, okay? So let's think about some things that oftentimes, I don't think we really thought about. So we get the story of it, uh, go to school. Okay, but now what kind of school should an individual be going to? I had a conversation yesterday with one of my partners, her her school's doctor pulled her aside, had to have a conversation with her about her son, right? Her son exhibits what school doctor is saying is attention deficit disorder, attention hyper deficit disorder. I ask a couple of questions, what does your son do? What does he eat? What times he go to bed, go to sleep, and she says to me, my partner says to me, the doctor didn't ask me any of these questions, right? And also just only wanted to prescribe this medication. Like, what do you think of this medication? Quite frankly, the medication, it may work
Hmm.
too well. Okay. Now, why would I say the medication may work too well? How does any of this have to relate to your finances? Oh,
Hmm.
because you may need to consider this school that's educating you and your children, right? If you go to school, you're oftentimes being put into a public school setting. Public school settings, with respect to the public school setting, right, are designed for employees.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, on rare occasion, a manager comes from these public school systems as well. But we see more managerial, more business owners, more entrepreneurs seem to come from private school, right? And there's a difference that's going on there. There's some planning happening versus not planning, because from the time a child enters school, where they start school, where they're going to finish school is going to oftentimes shape their social circles, what it is that they'll be exposed to. So I go to school, okay, fine. Some of our children may also be learners of a different sort. Some auditory, some are visual, some are both, some learn by application. I happen to be the last type. What type of learner are you? Anyone want to share what kind of learner they are?
Visual,
Visual. Okay.
more hands-on.
Anyone else? Okay, so one person saying visual.
Yeah,
Visual audio,
Say
Mhm.
again.
visual and audio.
Visual and audio. Also seeing visual and audio in the chat. Application also in the chat. Okay, so we got a mixture of learners on the call today, right? Now, again, what your style of learning is also going to influence what potentially you may think of doing professionally, right? If you let's imagine that someone gets frustrated as a child, right? With arithmetic, but as they get older, they love money. But as a child, they never got taught how to deal with money. No one ever showed them how it could be useful with accounting or bookkeeping, or what kind of rewards and who are looking for people that enjoy other people professionally who want to work with numbers, right? And so, going back to the mom and her child situation, I also had to ask, like, well, what kind of her child is an athlete. So clearly there's some focus in martial arts. Clearly there's some discipline, right? So there's focus, there's discipline, there's concentration. What is it that is not happening? Possibility that the child may not be stimulated well. May not be enough stimulus, right? Well, when it comes to finance, if there's not enough stimulus, we see either a stagnation or a deflation of interest, right? People waver. Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, let's get back to creating this one, right? So you go to school, you got to think about what kind of learner you are, right? Then you want to think about graduating. Graduating comes with debt, right? Then you want to think about getting a good job. And I'm gonna put good in quotation marks because no one ever says a great job. No one says get a job you love. I oftentimes hear getting a good job, right? Get a job with growth. I don't hear that in the conversation. Okay, so this is an opportunity for us to introduce those types of things into the conversation because our reality is determined also by our mentality. How we think is how we'll also view the world. So hoping to also change, not convert, but help you see it a different perspective of the way that you view things. Okay. So now when you get up, let's think about what comes with graduation. There's debt. So for the job, you may need to get out of debt from the school that you went to, right? Because that's part of it. So we got to think about savings, because again, while going to school, there needs to be some saving. If a child is going to a public school system, you know, the education is essentially free, right? So what's happening there? Well, if it's essentially free, you got to find a way to stay within the budget without having to spend more money, right? That may mean having a conversation of, hey, we need to buckle down, bucko. We What can we do to help you improve? You know, what's not working, right? Um, how can we help, right? Communication. So it's a big component of creating a budget for retirement and also planning our way all the way up to retirement is communicating, not number one, with ourselves, as well as number two, the people who are going to help us along the way with what it is that we want to achieve. Closed mouths don't get fed. So if you can't communicate by opening your mouth and saying what it is that you want, and then creating a plan of action from there, right? Because some of us are saying, like in our mind, oh yeah, like I want to retire. Okay, well, what are the steps to you getting to retirement? Right. So we including savings there, right? And we want to make sure that you know, getting out of debt, and then goals slash I say goals slash dreams because a dream is anything that you see or imagine in your mind without writing it down. A goal is something that you saw in your mind and you actually took the time to write it down. And it also has steps to accomplishing it. So goals or dreams, which side of the table are you on in that regard? Are you dreaming or are you goal setting? Okay, so I want to help some people start goal setting, not, wake up from the daydream. Okay. I love that song, by the way. Daydream. I fell asleep beneath the flowers. You didn't think you were getting dinner and the show tonight, did you? Okay. So, well, I see some of you guys are it's 7:23 while we're live, so some people are scarfing down a little snack, all right, so dinner in the shop. Got to keep it entertaining. All right, so we got goals, we got dreams. Let's start thinking about this thing here, okay? Now, from this good job, I wanted to really start actually like planning here. So let's talk about this. Getting a good job, you get a base salary. Now, this is where we're going to really dive into the planning part of this. You have a base salary. Let's go ahead and say, let's create a scenario. So whoever wants to put it into the chat or unmute themselves and say a job, say a job.
Clerical clerk.
Clerical clerk?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and put that down. Clerical clerk, right? And is it someone that works in the courts? So that way, I'm tracking. Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay. So, and how much what's the average salary for a clerical clerk? Base entry level. Anybody want to Google it real quick? Unless you already know. We're looking for the annual salary. All right. Now, already, any kind of clerical position, any type of administrative function or job means that it carries with it a lot of mental activity, okay? Attention to detail, data entry, okay? So for the basic entry level position, salary is what on an annual basis?
It's 40,000.
40,000,
45,000, yeah.
45,000. All right. Thank you. Right now, that's a 40-hour work week for 50 weeks out of the year, right? 2 weeks off, given weekends and holidays, whatever, right? Remember, we're at the job point. So the whole, 6 to 8 weeks off in the middle of the year for school, have that conversation early, okay? Set set the narrative, set the plan of action in motion now. Okay. This is where after school activities come into place because they teach our children that if you're being competitive economically or financially, there are no days off. All right. That's just like in any sport. So your job is your sport. All right. I want you guys to be high performing athletes when it comes to your money. All right. So we got 45,000. That's base. That's 40 hours a week, 50 weeks out of the year. Does this position oftentimes come with a retirement plan? Okay. So,
Yeah.
so under savings, we got to make sure that we put in here retirement, right? Now, this seems to be a traditional job in throughout the US, right? So we can say that this person may have a traditional 401k plan, which is the common thing right now. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the common thing right now. So we're gonna go with the common theme. We're not gonna go off into, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. We're gonna make this person an entrepreneur. I'm gonna show you how to turn a clerical clerk making $45,000 a year into an entrepreneur. Okay. So here's something that maybe a few of you are already familiar with, called matching or maxing the match. All right. So maxing the match is when your employer, for your employer sponsored 401k plans.
Yes.
Matches your money.
Say that one more time for us, please. I think the young lady said that they match your money, right? They match whatever the contribution is. If you can, and I believe that there's a cap on some, and if not most,
Percentages.
right? And that cap is about 5. I'm just gonna put it in here as 5% to, I've seen it at 6%.
Mm-hmm.
Many have reduced it now to 3%.
So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and stretch this from 3% to 6%, because really, quite frankly, the employer is looking for as many ways to reduce their expenses. Payroll is a huge expense.
It's possible.
Yep.
So, now I don't make these statements to upset anyone. So if it seems as though I'm touching some nerves, I apologize in advance. It's not my intention. I'm only talking about some of the things that I've seen in my day-to-day profession, right? Now, your employer matches you from 3%, which, mind you, is the historical annual rate of inflation. Okay. So you may have the 3% match. And with some of my clients, I've had a client of mine say to me, oh, but like, that's not very much. Well, you're right. But at the very least, matching and, keeping pace with inflation. So if you put your 3% aside, right, which is your maximum, and your employer puts its 3% aside,
It's
essentially
6%.
it's matching, right? You're able to keep pace with inflation. All right. Not to mention, you have a double contribution that's being made, yours and your employers. So this is good for tax purposes. All right. Now we're not going to get into the tax conversation, although it is definitely something that we will get into in the future. Right. I'm just waiting on somebody to do their thing. All right. I'm just, and they know who they are. I support this person. I am waiting. I am rooting you on. My dream, maybe I need to write my dream down and say this person gets licensed. So that way my dream becomes a goal, and I'll put a date on it for 4/30/2024. So that way it's also matching some other goals. All right.
That's a
So
few days.
it certainly
Yeah, it
is.
is.
But it's also a new year for some of our brothers and sisters. So happy New Year! Way to celebrate the new year with new accomplishments and new achievements. All right. So let's get back to this retirement match. All right. So you got the 3% matches you. It's keeping pace with inflation, right? Wow, that's it.
Mm-hmm. You know how many pieces of clothes you have? What do you mean? In the washing machine. Look on the back of the chair and see if that's what. I don't have any clothes in the washing machine. No.
You know, I don't know if anybody wants a laundry discussion on YouTube. Like I said, we get dinner and a show, right? We get dinner and a show.
It's all good.
It certainly is. So let's go ahead and anyone remember what we were writing here when I mentioned getting it was getting what?
Don't recall.
Say again?
I don't recall.
Okay, right. I think what we do is if no one remembers this point, I'm gonna
We
go
were
ahead.
talking about 3 to 6%, and then after that, um, oh well.
It's all right. Hey, I said we would have a conversation around things that you all are interested in. So I just wanted to test the interest and test, what we're writing down. So that way, again, if we're gonna have conversations about some things, we can do that, right? So we can still add more points onto this. This is just us creating the budget, right? So I said that we would turn Mr. or Mrs. Clerical Clerk into an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
right? So we've got 45,000, all right? And here we need to think about where this individual may be in life. So if you're young, I want you to consider this, right? For a young person, $45,000 may not seem like a whole lot. But to those of us who've lived a little bit, 45,000 is pretty good, okay? It's not Lamborghinis and yachts, but you can still live caviar lifestyle and champagne dreams if you want. Your champagne might be sparkling cider, and your caviar your caviar might just be grapes. To go with the sparkling cider. But but and you may on occasion enjoy the a fine cigar or eating out at a nice restaurant, right? So whatever your high profile lifestyle is, let's conceptualize something, right? If you're young, you're at home, I want you to not think about living beyond $45,000 means. This is how much your base salary is. This is your income. If you get promotions, great, no problem. Add that to something else, right? And that's where we're going to go ahead and put this in here right now as investments. Now, this is where I'm going to show you how to turn Mr. or Mrs. Clerical Clerk into an entrepreneur. Because for the overtime, yeah, I put that emphasis on the B, overtime, right? Your overtime income. This, your 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. prime. Your overtime, all right? Anything above your base salary is your overtime. This I want you to think of as a second job, right? You're doing more work than you normally get paid for, right? That might be time and a half. For some, that might be. Depends on the kind of work you do, right? You might have went to a trade school. You didn't have to go to a private university, a state university. You could have went to a community college. You could have went to, again, a trade school, a vocational school, right? Parents, don't hold your children back. If they're exhibiting a mature mindset, consider emancipation at an age of about 15 or 16, what state you're in. All right. But again, this is for the parent who knows that their child is mature enough to handle certain responsibilities or has come to a place where the family needs additional support. we're creating a lot of situations, a lot of solutions for a lot of different people all at one time. Okay, the possibilities can go whichever way you want them to. Okay. Now you've got your 5 p.m. grind to 9 p.m. Whatever your manager, your employer is asking you to do for a couple extra hours a week, hey, a couple extra hours a week, it compounds, and over a longer period of time, it ends up being a massive amount of income that you've made, right? So like, let's say for our base salary of 45,000, what's a reasonable amount of overtime income? 10 grand, 15, 30, how much?
About 15.
Yeah, about 15.
Anyone else? All
I
right,
agree.
15,000. So let's say 15,000. Okay. Now we're using the analogy of a young person. So someone who's 17 to 24. Okay. Meaning from the time frame that a person may graduate high school to the time that they may graduate college. Okay. Now, did their school come with debt? We don't know. We're not gonna, we could bring that part into the conversation maybe another time, when we really focus on like debt. And for those of you who may have been invited to this call today, we talk about a number of different things. I'm just covering the topics that were in the survey. All right. So for those of you who stick around all the way to the end, we're going to send out a survey to you. Please kindly respond to it. It helps us make improvements. It helps us create more solutions for more people look like you. Okay. So, all right. So 15,000 extra a year, right? Now, how much is 15,000 by 5 years?
Five.
15 times 5,
Yep.
that's 75,000.
So 75,000. Okay. So now here it is that over 5 years, right? And let's not even say 5 years. Let's say 3 to 5 years, because that's a common question. What's your 3 to 5 year goal? What's your 3 to 5 year plan, right? In cases, you may also hear, what is your 10-year plan, right? So in 10 years, how much is 15,000 a year?
That's double that.
150,000, right?
Mhm.
And when we hear people talk about retirement, we hear people talk about a how many year plan?
30, 32, 40,
Is it 30 or is it
40 now.
now I want to take a moment to just say something for a second. When I was a kid, it used to be a 20-year plan.
Yep.
And I'm 40 years old now. So from the time I was about, let's go with 11. No, let's go with 10. From the time that I could actually think that I could remember something happening in my life, right? Let's say 10. So that's a 30-year period that it went from 20 years to 32, right? So let's go ahead and put the new extreme of it. A 30-year plan, right? How much is that?
It's 40 years now.
40 years? Oh
40
man.
years.
Oh, somebody do the math of 40 years. 15 times 40, what's that?
That's 600,000.
$600,000 from overtime. Now, if the person stays within their 45,000 a year budget without any extra hours, lives, try saying this double L word back to
Lives life,
life.
alliteration.
Thank you. Lives life, within that $45,000 a year basis, right? and never gets injured, well, let's think about that for a second. Your job gives you something called group term life insurance. Okay. Basically, your job is already practicing buying term and investing the difference. Okay. How are they buying term? Well, they buy group term life insurance. It's at a maximum of 50,000. Okay. They may offer you something called supplemental insurance, which means you pay a little bit more money for it, right? And it gives you additional coverage. But most people are underinsured. Okay, why do I say that? Well, for this person, 45,000, they're within their insurable means. But if the person gets injured or hurt or terminally ill, it it doesn't go to the individual. This 50,000 goes to the company. All right. And after a certain period of time, the company, the employer may cease coverage as well as employment, which means that this person is no longer actively employed. All right. This is a very hard reality for some people. Okay, but we're gonna talk about this real quick because we're gonna get people out of having to sweat this. Okay. And the way that we're gonna get people from out of the way of sweating this is if you've already got 50,000, well, the rule of thumb in life insurance is that you have anywhere from 3 to 7 times your income. All right. So 45,000, what on the low end, right? Times 3, what's that? 45, 45,
135.
135. So $135,000 in coverage, right? This may be sufficient, right? But what's the number on the 7? 7 times 45? About what? 320, 300,
10, about 240.
240? You sure? Well, you know
You
what?
said, how much was it again in the beginning?
7 times 45,000?
Yeah, yeah.
240,000?
10 times 4 is 28 plus 4, make that 3. 31. 315.
$315,000 in coverage. Now, just so you guys are aware, there's something called breakpoints in insurance, which means that like if you go up a couple, like at 50,000 increments, you could have more coverage for a cheaper price, right? So you could, this is what the numbers look like on term life insurance for a private policy. All right, where you would subtract the 50,000 that you get from your employer from your private coverage, right? So if it's 315,000, we would subtract the 50,000, and that means that we're looking more so at what? 85,000. Let's just go ahead and just put these fugazi numbers. 85,000 to 300 and 365, 300 and yeah, 65,000. Let's just go with, well, excuse me, 265,000.
265.
Thank you. Right? So we deduct that cost, and these types of policies could cost you somewhere of like the realm of, depending on, because we're looking at a young person, it could be anywhere from $25 a month for a healthy person, you know, with no pre-existing medical conditions or anything like that. In contrast to what a person may need to get for whole life, which is the type of insurance that comes with saving, right? I talk about the whole life part of it as a also because whole life is a lot more expensive. Okay. In fact, it's about 10 times more expensive. All right. 10 times more money. Now, I know people are interested in, having more money or more, what seems like more coverage, but just really think about what your needs are. it's not something that we're going to debate with you or anything like that. Just want you to have the idea of like putting least amount of money into something that you only need for the period of time that you are working, or until the time of which your youngest child graduates either high school, college, because they can work their way through college. You can't work your way through retirement. Okay. So here it is that we put aside the life insurance. Why? Because we're looking to protect the income, right? You may want to also make sure that you have, you know, along with your goals and dreams. Let's just also put this in here. Let's make sure we put legal protection. Okay, that legal protection could also be for IRS audits. Okay, you've got $600,000 at the end of at the end of 30, excuse me, 40 years. You know that, hey, you let it sit underneath your mattress. So inflation got to it. You need to consider making that money work for you. Okay, if you're sitting on this money again, put it someplace that's going to work for you. Consider some investments, all right? Types of investments that might work for you, offer you, a level of security. Consider some mutual funds, all right? The least you have to put into a mutual fund is $25 a month. I don't know what that may look like for anyone, okay? But it's the minimum. You can put more than $25 in, but as long as it's not touching, as long as it's not coming out of that 45,000, okay? Use your money outside of the 45,000, okay? Now also for savings, let me just also make sure I put this over here for emergency money. You need to have 6 months of income. 3 to 6 months. Start out with the 3. You know, if you've got it within your ability to get to 6 without disturbing the rest of your plan, do so. Okay. Now, I did make this conversation more so about the younger person. How do I take this and also apply it to someone who may be a little bit older? Well, again, whatever time frame it is that you have to work within, for anyone that's over the age of 50, your retirement also comes with something called
Yep.
contributions. Okay, and this is somewhere in the realm of currently $1,000 that the government also allows you to contribute over whatever your traditional percentage might be, right? So this is just to help you catch up as it implies, but bear in mind that for this type of retirement plan, you can't touch your money
Right.
until after 59 and a half. Okay, so if you're 50 years old or older, you can't touch the money in your 401k until after 59 and a half. Let's just say 60, so that way there's no confusion, right? You can't touch your retirement money until after the age of 60. Okay, now the closer you are to 60, closer you are to that time horizon that most people are thinking about as 65 or 67. Okay, and that is going to also change in the next couple of years as well. So think about this. Okay, it's 40 years in the United States is now the current trend. All right. Do you love being a clerical clerk? Maybe. You might end up loving the people that you work with, right? That's oftentimes the reason why people stay at most employment. They like the people that they work with, right? If they don't, please, save yourself some time. If you're young, try not to bounce around so many times. All right. It doesn't look good on a resume. You having a bunch of jobs, all right? You need some consistency. Put some commitment on your resume. if you're going to go ahead and continue to work for somebody else. But again, even if you are working for someone else, when it comes to that overtime, you're working for you. Now that's that extra money that you're putting aside, right? That $15,000 a year that you're saving up, that you're stacking for the next 40 years, the 600,000, it can be even higher than that in the world of investment. Put some interest on that thing, like we discussed last week with the rule of 72. We'll touch on that next week because we're coming to the end of this, right? And I also want to leave some space for some questions. So this is where I'm going to stop. This is where I'm just going to like blow up this picture real quick or blow up this slide. So that way, if you want to take a screenshot of this information, you're welcome to. In fact, I encourage you to. Just do us a favor and don't share it with anyone. Okay? That's the last thing we want you to do. Don't try to make this easy. Don't try to make someone else's life easy by sharing with them some information that might help them make a couple $100,000. You know, don't do that. That's what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Put your face mask on first, right? That's what they tell us in the airport at least, and before they start pumping us full of oxygen and get us all nice and high at 10,000 feet and cruising. Okay, so let me blow this slide up. Okay, but remember, don't share this with anyone. Okay? That's the last. All right. So to recap everything that you're seeing,
Reduce it,
yes, go ahead.
reduce the font, please.
Reduce the font size.
Yeah, or stretch the text box.
Okay, let's do that. Let's go ahead and you know, you see this? If
Maximize.
I say again, slides, right?
Can you maximize?
Hold on. Yeah, I gotta go to size. Is there more? There we go. And then let's reduce the font size. Bum, 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 bum. See how that works, how that looks. Better?
No, the other way, I mean, I can easily take a picture of it the other way before you enlarged it. I don't know about anybody else. This way,
Anybody?
only half of it to the right.
There's only showing half of it to the right.
Yes, at least for me. Let me see, let me do something different here. Hold on. Right.
Turn
Okay.
it that long way.
Let me try. Let me try it one more time. See this? You get dinner and a show, and then you get the bloopers too. All this, all this backstage action.
That's perfect right there. Is your screen touch screen where you can just
Nope.
zoom in?
No, ma'am. Let's see. Let's try this. Let's see what this looks like. How does that look?
It looks perfect on my screen. I don't know how they got your orientations on your computer or phone.
Anybody else? Anybody else? How's it? How's the
Okay.
screens now?
Good.
All right. So,
Looks good.
all right. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, go ahead and snap a screenshot of this. And in fact, what I may end up just doing is I may end up just sharing this short presentation with you guys, the slides with you as a PDF. I don't know if that may help anybody, but you know, a quick little work through on creating a budget for retirement, right? Let's get you to retirement. Let's think about all the things that you're doing right now. Can you do this as a 9 to 5 employee? Absolutely, right? America thrives on it. The country, the city, you know, the state, everyone depends and thrives on employees having, you know, stable income, still being able to show up to work and also make sure that they're taking care of all their necessities. right? Of course, it starts out with staying within your actual budget. Stay within your base salary, right? Plan life around this. Is that going to be tough for some people? Yes. Are you going to get promotions? Possibly. Could you look for other alternatives to work? Good, right? And if you need assistance with that, let's schedule a one-on-one to talk about some possible solutions. Okay. But also consider making sure that you are protecting yourself and your family's interest by having your own personal policies, right? You use your car to get to and from work. You got insurance on your car. You have insurance on your home. For some of you, you got insurance on your phone. Home and auto insurance are required by government law. Life insurance is not. Okay. Be mindful about the cost of what's available to you and stay within that 45. Don't go above that. Use the rest of your money to actually invest into yourself. All right. Set aside your 3 to 6 months of income for your emergencies. You never know what life's gonna have. It's gonna throw at you. Okay, but most families don't have more than $1,000 to tackle the majority of emergencies that arrive in their life. Okay. People have employer sponsored retirement perks, but they don't understand their retirement benefits. They don't understand their employee benefits. If you need assistance, feel free to reach out. Happy to assist you. Okay. But that's no excuse for not using whatever percentage it is that your employer is offering. Take advantage of the taxes, right? It'll work out for you. Okay. But what you don't pay taxes on now, you will pay taxes on later. So think about that. Okay, that's a conversation for a whole another time. Okay, but to the piece de resistance, for the money that you are earning for your 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. grind, for that overtime, when your employer says, hey, I need to contract you for additional hours, think about it like a business owner. You deserve to be compensated, but don't go spending that compensation on your bills. Because if you're spending the extra money that you're making on bills, got to make an adjustment to it. All right. And that's an easy fix. Okay. But hey, let's get the majority of the 15,000 that you or someone else like you or might be, maybe let's get the majority of that into some investments for the period of time that you're going to have to work. And when it comes to investments, you can always, like reasons to get inexpensive life insurance is an amount that you can afford, even if you walked away or were let go from a job. If that's $25 a month, that's less than $100 a month that you can afford on a whole life, on your own private personal term life policy, in contrast to a couple $100 a month on whole life insurance. Okay, like really think about that. Okay, whatever you can afford when things are the toughest, that's what you want to work with. All right. So that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got for you tonight. Appreciate your time, your energy, and your presence. Does anyone, it's 8 o'clock, it's the top of the hour. I'm gonna go ahead and stop.